It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, we've all heard the news that Thoma Bravo got rid of Kofax. I'll bet you they're having a big party over there at Thoma Bravo's headquarters. But back in November, Bloomberg put out that article. Remember that? I did a video on it. And they said that Thoma Bravo was exploring selling off Kofax for $3 billion. That was the number they wanted. I'm thinking there's no way in hell they got $3 billion for that. It'd be nice if they actually had to share the real numbers. Wouldn't that be nice so you kind of know if these things are actually working out, which ones worked out, which ones didn't? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm convinced the Document Imaging Channel, those friends of mine that sell supply and service print equipment, that industry's becoming, well, they're becoming like a flea market, if you will. In other words, we've all been to the garage sale. You go to someone's house and you buy their crap off their driveway, right? But isn't it better to go to the flea market where there's a whole bunch of people's junk all in one place? And it looks to me like a lot of these private equity firms have ran around and they bought up all the individual stuff, right? They got a bunch of stuff. And now they're having a big flea market. They're going to get rid of all of it at once. Doesn't it seem that way? I mean, Kofax spent 2 decades buying up companies. But once they get bought up and they're under these private equity arms, you don't really know what happened to them. You don't know if the same store sales grew. You don't know if they just shut it all down and moved all that software to some other platform. And what are they doing with all these companies? Does the R&D stop at these companies? What's the real story of Kofax from the day that Lexmark bought it back in 2015 till the day that Thoma Bravo sold it? And so we've seen the headline. It's out there. Thoma Bravo sells Kofax. They sold it to a company called Clear Lake Capital. It's a partnership with TA and Associates, basically private equity groups. I'm convinced this time they're going to really financial engineer the hell out of that thing. I mean, that's got to be the strategy. I mean, they went on a shopping spree. They bought up all these companies, and now somebody's got to make all this make sense. Someone's going to have to make some really tough, hard decisions. Can they get an ROI out by financial engineering those assets? I believe that's how they're going to do it, right? But we remember back in 2015 when Lexmark bought them, and they were all excited about buying Kofax. And, you know, if you think about it, back in 2015, that was kind of a bold move on Lexmark's part. You know, they're realizing, hey, you know, the world's getting more digital. Maybe we ought to get into some software applications to help our customers navigate information in a digital landscape. They go out and buy Kofax, all excited about it, press release, everything's really grandiose, right? Then what happens? Well, it wasn't too far after that, like about a year and a half, that a company, well, it was a group of investors led by Apex, and Apex is a Chinese corporation. Now they're called 9-Star. But 9-Star and PAG Group, which is an Asian private equity group, you know, they got together and they bought Lexmark. And then I'm sure it wasn't, it was like, I don't know, a couple of months later maybe. It was pretty close, folks, that Thoma Bravo came in and said, okay, we'll buy Kofax from Lexmark. Because I'm sure that, you know, Chinese corporation that makes printers and toners didn't want anything to do with any software probably. Hey, we make printers and toner. Go sell that stuff. We don't care about that software. Spin that off. Get rid of it. They sold it to Thoma Bravo. But folks, look at this. Since Lexmark bought them, you know, they bought all kinds of companies. One of their biggest acquisitions underneath the Kofax umbrella was the Document Imaging Division, which was part of Nuance Communications. You know, recently they bought SciGen Software. They bought Printex. I mean, folks, they bought all kinds of different assets. They've been doing that since the history of Kofax. But how did all that pan out? Where was the home run in that whole entire organization? What's the exit strategy now for Kofax? Folks, you got to believe that the exit strategy now is to clean that thing up once and for all, financial engineer it, try to make as much money as everybody can. The future of document management and workflows is changing so rapidly that a lot of these legacy softwares just got developed too late. That's just the reality. And I think the industry as a whole and a lot of the private equity group out there in the document imaging channel space is just, they're basing a lot of things on some fantasies. They're basing things on fantasies of the distribution channel that sells print equipment, supplies that equipment, and services that equipment, and what capabilities that channel has to sell other things that aren't hardware related. And it's just been a continuous kind of a struggle. And like I said, if I'm wrong and, you know, Thoma Bravo and they want to come out and they want to share all the success stories around this, that'd be awesome. But I don't expect to see any of those success stories. I believe what we're seeing right now in the Document Imaging channel, and we're probably going to see it a little bit more in a lot of these private equity groups, well, they're going to be going to the flea market. And people are going to be buying them at the flea market. They've spent the last decade or so buying up some assets, and now they got to look at these assets, say who really wants them, what's the value of them. Folks, a lot of things are going to change, but I don't believe this to be a home run, and I don't want the channel to look at it as a home run. I want the channel to look at it as a warning bell. As a warning bell. And before you start jumping on the bandwagon of outdated programs and processes, maybe we really need to start thinking about what's the future really all about. What's the future really all about based on realities? Because the last thing I'm sure all these private equity groups want is to find themselves at a flea market and saying to somebody, yeah, I'll go ahead and take a nickel for that. Just some things to think about, my friends, because we all know this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow.